Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Command Tower, episode 4, the podcast devoted to all things Commander. My name is Dan, as usual. I am with my two co-hosts. We have Tom.
Hello.
We have Adam.
Hello all.
And for the very first time, we have a guest. Our guest today is Ed.
Hey guys, thanks very much for having me on. So I'm a big EDH player, and one of my favourite things about the game is the politics of it, how you can influence the flow of the game without necessarily using your own deck. So yeah, thanks for having me on to discuss that.
Absolutely fine, no problem. Okay, so let's kick off into our politics section then. So guys, when politics is mentioned in Commander, what do you think?
Right, well, I'll jump in first here. I mean, I'm not, obviously, as we said in previous episodes, I'm very much more a creature player, tend to be fairly aggressive in my gaming style. So my view on politics will be different to someone that's more of a control player. Generally speaking, when you're a creature player, to what I see as politics is, it's almost the strongest survives in essence. I mean, you tend to try and cripple the person that's directly the most threat to you and try and influence your other players to do the same by obviously pointing out that you're not going to batter them with creatures that they've got no hope of stopping in event for a little bit of help in dealing with something you can't. It's kind of the essence of a green deck, isn't it? I mean, a green deck necessarily can't deal with all problems it comes across on the table, but it can beat someone into submission, into helping them almost to a degree. But I mean, that's not really that political. That's just me throwing my weight around. But no, I mean, politics is a fantastic point of the game. And as you look around cards, which I'm sure we'll be covering shortly, there's some fantastic cards out that just scream politics all over them that in a normal game you'd never even give a second view to. I mean, as a political player, Ed, as you said, I would imagine your decks, there's certainly a few cards that you feature regularly that you know give you a lot of chance in that.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think in general my decks tend to be less streamlined with staples, if you like, and I tend to play cards that I know can influence certain things. But I think your analysis was pretty spot on, really. I mean, a lot of it is just about, so whatever colour you're in or colours you're in, you're always going to have some weakness, something you can't do. So therefore, you need other players at the table to pick it up for you. And a lot of it, to me, is just about being able to pace your own deck, so play at a speed where you're comfortable knowing that if something was to occur, you can either answer it or not worry about it.
Yeah, that's the big thing with politics. Politics is not necessarily being able to answer it yourself, is it? It's being almost to know where the answer on the table is for you to use.
Yeah, exactly. Or something I try. So communication is the main thing, really. If you spend a lot of time, often you can get loads of information from players just by chatting about, or false bluffing, saying, "Oh, I've got a good card in my hand for this" and things, and they'll let you onto things that you wouldn't necessarily pick up just by playing cards.
Yeah.
So, for example, if there's a big board presence and you really want to wrap the board, but you're like, well, I could save this for later on for whatever reason, then you can try and pretend you don't have that, and someone else might just do your job for you. So not only is that wasting their card resource, but also their mana, their turn. So I think a lot of the way I play is focused around that. Now, I wouldn't say I've played in any particularly competitive groups, but I was thinking about this before we started recording, and I think my win percentage for EDH is fairly high. I'd say 80% in recent times. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that, okay, first of all, there's no really hyper, not aggressive, but hyper strategic decks like combo decks. I tend not to face so many of those. But in the cases I do, I always find that I'm able to hold on to answers, basically, for what I need, because you can almost dictate what's going to happen next. Like, no matter what deck you're playing, you can kind of get a foresight into, I think he's going to do this, or they're going to do that. So you can just prepare for it, basically. So it's just all about not burning your deck out before it's ready, but yeah, before...
Yeah, that's one of the very good points. It is, as you say, it's using answers at the right time is a massive thing. It's too easy to waste an answer early game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
my
tell me.
standing on politics is essentially I am the combo and control player, so it's essentially what's going to kill me first. Is it going to be that person or that person? I don't really want to team up with people. It's just a matter of keeping myself alive to the point where I can either combo out or control everything into the ground so that I'm going to win.
At that point, though, you've still got to consider, even if you don't do it intentionally, there's going to be certain players that, if you leave someone else exposed, you know they're more likely to go for them.
Yes, I guess to a point, but that's like when I play Marath, which is essentially my multiplayer deck. As Army is not a multiplayer deck. It sometimes survives in a 3-4 player game, but generally doesn't. Marath simply just sits there. It doesn't want to be friends with anyone. It simply just does along and then just in like 5-6 turns just goes bang and everyone's dead. You don't need friends for that because it runs enough sweepers, it runs enough removal, especially when you start putting Basilisk Collar on Marath, that it just doesn't care. So if you're playing a creature-based deck, and especially if you're a rampy creature-based deck, where you're going to be going dun 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 for ages and ages, just ramping and ramping, then playing a big thing, of course you're going to need friends, because anyone playing like white with a bunch of small dudes is just going to run you over. So you're obviously going to need, maybe even like a control player friend who's got 95% wraths, who's just going to go kill you guys, kill you guys, kill you guys. But
that's another thing as well. I don't think that's necessarily the case every time. So if you're assuming in a multiplayer game, and there's one player being hyper aggressive, then essentially the idea that your life total as resource extends from one-on-one magic to EDH, but kind of in a bigger way, because if someone's being aggressive and say you and another player both have a couple of wraths or whatever, and you're waiting for them to drop theirs and they're waiting for you to drop yours perhaps, but every time that aggressive player is doing damage, whether it's to you or to the other person, it's kind of helping in a way. So imagine if they attack you once, I mean, I don't know about other people, but I tend to play in groups where people look at life totals and try to keep them even if they're deciding into attacking and both options are equal, apart from the life totals. But also, if they're attacking your opponents, they're just doing work for you as well. So, like one of my favorite things is to have some answer, but obviously at instant speed. So if you really need it, you've got to get out. But sometimes you can be holding an answer and they can make an offensive move, and you just take it, because then it makes you look like you don't have the answer, and therefore, that's going to influence how other people play. Who they might attack next.
There's obviously like a line on the curve where you have to sort of balance usefulness with being too overpowered. Because if you're not very useful, someone's just going to get rid of you because you're just sat there doing nothing, and you're probably going to do something later on which is going to screw you up. So if you're being too dangerous, they're going to do exactly the same thing, going to take you out because you're being dangerous. So you got to try and balance being useful to everyone else on the table, but not being too useful, if you know what I mean, that you're playing so well that you are going to become a threat.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I really do well at when I'm playing EDH, is just balancing my deck in terms of what resources I have left and what resources I play to the table. It's just judging the game, because it's not necessarily a case of it's later in the game, you play more stuff. Sometimes if there's a huge threat and a medium threat, you can afford to sit back a little bit, just put enough down to tick you over and basically the bare minimum, and then hopefully once everything else gets dealt with, build up a board. So sometimes you can see games that get towards the end and everyone has everything in play and it's just crazy, and it's really, really actually difficult to win from that position because it's so hard to interact with everything else in the way that is ideal for you.
So how do you play then, Dan? Do you focus on life totals, don't you? Or
my playgroup tends to focus on life totals. Yeah, whoever's got the highest life totals tends to be the one to be got at. I don't generally work like that. I have a theory I've spoken about with my playgroup and some friends, and it's the theory of what I like to call the 4-player theory. Obviously, that number changes depending on how many people are in the game, but my take on it is, in a 4-person game, player 4 is the person who's going to be first because he has nothing in play. Basically, he is the weakest one there. He's going to be taken out because he's the weakest one there. He's the easiest target. Player 3 is a step up from that, and that's where I like to sit most of the time. I like to be player 3. I'm not the weakest, but I'm not one of the strongest too, so generally I'll be left alone. Player 2 is normally vying with player 1 to be the top dog in the game. And sometimes player 1 seems to be got at more than player 4, just simply because they've raced off with some ridiculous ramp, or they're playing ridiculous creatures and things. So I tend to try and be player 3 until player 4 gets knocked out, when I then like to step my game up to be player 2. So that way I'm not the strongest, so I'm not going to be gunned for. I'm not
I like that analogy.
So I'm not going to be gunned for. So
I really like that.
Yeah, and then basically when it's down to 2 of you, you then full throttle. You jump into the player 1 spot and you just absolutely annihilate the other guy at the table. My only real thing for politics in my group is the fact that I normally beg not to be attacked, just because I'm not normally doing anything fantastic. And then we've discussed my decks before, my playstyle before. I'm not, my decks are good, but they're not scary looking in any way, and I tend to be the one that's sort of just begging for their life. But for the most part, I tend to always leave a white mana open, and when someone sort of puts their commander into the attack position, I say, "Oh, are you sure? I've got to condemn." A lot of the times they don't believe me, but
that's what you should do once. You should just do like 36, 37 planes, and the rest condemns, and just see how many people gotten on.
Yeah, if that was a viable strategy, I'd be doing that. I mean, I've certainly played with the 99 land and a commander strategy, so I'm not. But then that's sort of in the rules of commander. I don't think having 30 odd condemns quite is.
Well, yeah, you have 98 mountains, a Valakut, and Ashling.
I hate that deck with a passion.
Is it because it's just so damn consistent?
It's so hard to deal with as well.
I build it as an April Fool's deck, and basically my mate was saying to me, there's no point building it because you're just going to have to find 99 mountains, you're wasting card sleeves. Just use a regular deck and just say to everyone, look, these are all mountains, but I have to go the full way.
Well, I wouldn't sleeve it, I'd just have 99 lands.
Yeah, to be honest, the only one you'd sleeve might be like Valakut, depending on sort of what the price of it is, and Ashling. Yeah. Because then, but it's 98 mountains. Who the hell cares if one gets, damaged slightly? You can just go to your local game store and just go, do you have any mountains I can have?
Yeah.
And they'll probably say yes. 9 times
that's
out of
quite
10.
A political deck as well, because in the early games, I mean, I've seen loads of Ashling decks online. Not all of them run 99 mountains or 98 mountains at a Valakut. And some of them are pretty good.
The other card is what is it? Explorer's map, so you can go find the Valakut.
Yeah. My fiance's got a Ashling deck, as it happens. It's not 99 mountains. It's okay. It's not the best deck I've seen, but no. But I mean, certainly with the 99 mountains one, that's very political. You can just sit there and say, I haven't got anything. I'm just playing lands.
I'm just playing mountains. Ashling blew up. Yes.
If people don't clock on after about turn 6, then really, you've got to punish them for it.
Yeah,
really I think threat analysis is probably another one of my favorite topics, but it's one of the most important things. A lot of the time, I mean, with newer players, it's fine because they're going to get into grips with the game. But a lot of the time, I've seen experienced players just play as if they're still playing a one-on-one game, and they just forget that they have to. Well, obviously, they're thinking they've got to kill 3 other people, but they're not thinking they have to deter attacks or whatever from the same 3 people. They kind of get blinkers on, if you like, and will go for one person. Yeah. And I've seen the cases where people have really powerful board positions, and they have an option to make a dent in it, but maybe not destroy it completely. So because they can't get rid of it completely, they'll just focus somewhere else. And to me, at least, that seems a mistake. Because if someone's really powerful and you make a move on it, then other people are more likely to help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. People will quite often chip. I mean, so it's like the old adage of, I mean, lightning bolting commander is fairly ineffectual because most things are too big. But in a political game, just for example, lightning bolt, you chuck 3 damage at a 4 toughness creature. Someone else is likely to probably try and chip in and get that extra damage through from somewhere because everyone wants it dead. It's
or a powerful person gets left on 3 life and it's just like bolt.
Yes.
Like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing to bear in mind with politics is it's even with your same deck, it can quite often take very different forms depending on if you switch to different game groups. So we've got multiple different game groups in our area, and if you stroll from one game group to another, just taking your exact same deck, the politics of how you play it would be very different because just of what you know or what you don't know you're coming against. If you play against a game group regularly, you know what's likely to come out on the table, so you know where your threats are going to come from, you know where to hit with a bribery, you know things like this already. You already have plenty of information ahead. If you come against a brand new game group you've not experienced before, politics to me takes a whole new ball game because you've really got to almost assess your opponents to actually see how powerful what's out there is. I mean, it's like when the first time I ever played Commander in the town over on from me, I was pretty much ignored because they were all fairly regular Commander players, and I was new to the group, so I was pretty much ignored and made them seriously pay for it. But in our gaming group, there's no way the board position I had would have been ignored. So it can come down to your group as well as a big factor.
I think that's where combo comes into it. I think that's why I started playing combo in EDH, is the fact that there's always going to be a point where you need a get out of jail free card because the life totals are so high. There's always going to be a point that you will just need to either kill someone or kill everyone depending on what position you are in. So being able to go this, I now win is a good way of just keeping yourself alive, even if it's just the threat of it. You don't even have to play it, just the threat of going, I can play like this tooth and nail and just kill everyone in one turn.
But do you find playing combo decks that once you've comboed off with that specific deck sort of once or twice, do you find that people think, oh, it's that? Like, we've got to take him out. He's player 1 before we've even started.
Oh, I love that. I love the uphill struggle of playing in a multiplayer Commander game where I'm instantly target number 1. That's brilliant. Love it. Because it's all the more satisfying when I either lose or even win. Because, like, if I lose and I've been playing really well and it's because they've beaten me fair and square, brilliant. I can't be any more happy for them. They've deserved the win. But I hate losing because of like screw or something jammy, essentially. And I guess you could say something jammy is combo, but to be honest, I run enough removal where if they can run the combo out and beat me with it, then they've played better than me, essentially.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually, that's kind of interesting. So like, I don't like playing combo decks personally. I don't mind playing against them. I don't like playing them just because personally I find them boring. But actually, your idea there that if you win, it's because it's been more of a challenge. I mean, mainly if you're in a consistent play group. That's quite a nice one. So
I play a lot against quite a few people who play very good decks, whether it's 1v1 or whether it's 3 or 4 player multiplayer. I play against some very good people, and usually I'm sort of top of the pecking order to sort of take out, and so it's always really, really good games where I have to sort of think through every move, where I'm having to watch very carefully, sort of time when I drop wraths, or who to pick on first, or which creature needs to die first. So normally if I'm just playing a casual game, I'll just dump Marath and just mana into him, make guys, dump Marath again, mana into him, make guys. But in a multiplayer game where I'm playing against good people, I'll wait until the end of their turn to do it. Mm-hmm. So that, like, if they play like Reese the Redeemed, if you don't kill him straight away, you're going to sort of start running into a bunch of really sort of heavy sort of amounts of tokens. Whereas if I had Marath there, I could just go, he's dead. Just tap 1, he's dead.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
So I think I've got, I mean, we were saying before, you introduced me as like a political player, but I should probably point out that like not all my decks are political, so I have not built around being political. It just tends to be the way I play with them, if that makes sense. So I've got a Zedruu deck, which is probably my favorite deck, which started off as like blue, white, red, good stuff or stuff I liked. Although I found since I've moved groups or more recently, I've actually had to start adding some more of the typical Zedruu stuff in, just to make it more fun, really, or just a bit different. But I've got a Voltron deck. Ulash is just green red, good stuff. An Orzhov deck, with a Filter and Extort, and a Slowbad deck, just that's very artifact heavy. The Slowbad does have some combos in it. I try to avoid just winning with them, unless it's the point where the game's gone on too long. Like I just want to end this. But most of the time with that, I'll just enjoy playing the game because it just does some crazy things. But I think in general, it's just a case of. So I think this actually will probably come onto this when we look at the deck list later as well. Just making sure that you use whatever card you've got, not only at the right time, but also just on the right player. So like some effects. Especially if you know what kind of decks you're against, if you have the opportunity to make someone discard a card or something, it's just about getting the timing right. I think is a lot of it. Not playing your deck out too early, and then so I've seen games where I've had people play against me or against the group and play all their creatures and then hit a wrath effect, and they'll sit there doing nothing for the rest of the game. And I'm just thinking, well, first of all, what did you think was going to happen? And second of all, you can scoop, right?
Right.
I think I've got a quick question. I just want to get out there. It's open to all three of you, but I guess I'm going to aim it at Ed first. Do you think there's any commanders where, so before the game's even started and the commanders are revealed, where you think no type of politics is going to get you out of the kicking that's coming?
From recent experience, I think Alora is one that a lot of people have started to pick up on.
Yeah, I was going to mention Alora. There's one of those in our group, and it does get kicked quite.
I don't mind it. I mean, there's a separate issue there more about their kind of bending what it is commanders are able to do, which is fine in itself. In that case, I won't comment on it here. But I think maybe things like Sliver Queen, stuff that's just very obvious what you're going to be doing. Sign of the Ur Dragon. If something comes up, one of my pet hate decks is Trostani, because I've played against so many playgroups where one or more players have had a Trostani deck, and it just does the same thing every time. Gains a bunch of life. It's like, yeah, that's great. And I know some people don't like commander damage, but I think it's a really important thing to keep decks like that in check. So, I mean, commander damage is another big thing as well. So, if you're
I think
clever with it, you can kind of, some people might forget about it, if that makes sense, over the course of the game. If they get hit early on, then they'll just, they might forget about it by the end of the game. And then if you can find a way to sneak that last bit of damage through, that helps a lot.
For me, with the commanders, I think, which I hate the most, I'll focus on more, are at the top of the list is Rafiq. If you're playing Rafiq, you are going to die by my hands first.
Yeah.
Rafiq is one of those decks where it's insanely unfair, where it can win by turn 4 without combo, because it can be so consistent that it just goes dumb and just hits you, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah. And if someone's playing that, that's what they're planning to do as well. They have no other plan. That's it. So you have to.
Then Maelstrom Wanderer, because if they can drop it early enough, they become really, really dangerous. And if they drop it even once, potentially, they're going to kill you. And the last one is, like you've mentioned, is Aloro, because if you don't focus on it, when you actually turn to it, you're going to see it's going to have about 400 life, and you're going to be like, there's no way I can burn through that without combo.
I think the main problem with Alora is the fact that you get to play commander without actually casting a commander and just get advantage from everything else.
Yes.
Which just feels like that's that one player that has an edge because they're just getting automatic advantage. Not necessarily just the life gain itself, but just what it triggers.
Yeah, I think we're getting slightly sidetracked here with sort of talking about the commanders we hate rather than the politics. So, last question then, Adam, sort of, which are your sort of pet hates?
I don't know. I don't really have any. I mean, in our playgroup, whenever you get a commander that seems to get a particular heavy amount of hate, they seem to vanish anyway pretty quick because the person playing them kind of picks up on it and, generally speaking, doesn't enjoy the game as much. So there's none that really, in our group, end up being lodged in your head as you hate to see it. So I don't know. I mean, the last one that got a little bit of hate was Sheldred as a commander.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that got a fair bit of hate, but as far as I'm aware, she's now retired and taken a seat in the deck with another commander taking to the helm.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I've never found her too bad because I mean it's one guy a turn, and if she sticks around for that many turns, then and she's not cheap either. So like there's plenty of time to deal with that.
You add Fleshbag Marauder to it, and you occur that you sacrifice the Fleshbag Marauder. Everyone else has to sacrifice one. Then you add things like Grave Pact or Butcher Malakir, and you just start sacking so many creatures and able to bring ones back that you just dominate the board. But I think we should move on now to the actual deck list. I think we've had a good discussion there.
Which shocking is a political deck.
Yes, it is actually. It's actually this is my Zedru deck. I have yet to play it, and it's I'm still sort of looking at it and testing it out in my head, looking at sort of like card draws. You know, like you can get draw simulators online and things and seeing how they work. So that's what I have at the moment. So I'd love some feedback from you guys.
Okay, do you want to quickly run through what the deck is?
Oh, right, yes, obviously. It's a Zedru deck, so it's essentially donating things, drawing cards and gaining life off that. I like Zedru for essentially it's a Sphinx's Rev for free every turn. Even if like one or two, even if you only have like one or two permanents on other sides of the board, that's fine by me for the sheer fact that I'm drawing an extra 2 cards and gaining an extra 2 life. It turns into a Loro very quickly. Even better than a Loro, and it's slightly harder to protect, but you've just got to sort of weigh up the options. So like the things which you can donate are Celestial Dawn. That's very good to donate to people who aren't playing white because it basically makes all their lands produce white mana. And if they don't have like artifacts which they can, or colorless spells in fact, which they can use to get rid of it, you can lock them out of the game completely. Illusions of Grandeur is an amazing card because they have to pay 2 life into it. So like it comes in, you gain 20 life, then you just push it to someone so you can have this for free, and then they've got to keep paying 2 mana into it, or they'll lose 20 life, which can be backbreaking, especially if you can put someone on 20 and go, you've got to now pay for this every single turn. So like the first turn it's 2, then it's 4, then it's 6, and you can quickly in some ways lock people out depending on how soon they get it. The quicker you can run it out and give it to someone, the worse it is. There's also Pyromancer's Swath if someone's playing control, especially not red based control. You give it to them, it's like, oh, now all your instances of sorceries deal 2 damage to me. Oh, you're not playing red, so there's like 2, maybe 3 you could potentially run. Oh, and you have to discard your entire hand at the end of your turn. Have great fun with that. Another card I put in is Blood Moon. I'm thinking about taking it out just for the sheer fact that mana fixing is going to be awkward with it, but I don't know. It's also expensive. Like the win cons, there's 2 win cons. There's the Kiki Jiki Splinter Twin combos, and then one of my favorite ones, which I picked up from watching a deck tech for a legacy thing, was Helm of Obedience and Rest in Peace. So what you do is you tap Helm of Obedience for at least 1, and it puts cards into the graveyard until a creature card hits the graveyard. With Rest in Peace, there is no graveyard, so the cards instantly go to exile. You deck them out completely, and then when it comes around their turn, they try to draw and they lose. That's essentially the deck. It's control, draw tons of cards, play something, and kill them.
And then combo out,
Yeah.
I was just sorry for jumping in on you before. So when you were on about Celestial Dawn, if I recall, you were talking about Iona a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
About how she locks people out of the game. So like Celestial Dawn is something I'm really not a fan of, because I mean maybe in 1-on-1 if you have to lock the opponent out of the game, that's fine. But if you're playing a multiplayer game, and you've locked like one person out, then that person's got to kind of just sit there and either walk away from the table, or basically it stops them from. Obviously, it stops them from playing, but it stops them from enjoying it, if that makes sense. Which I'm not a fan of doing.
I agree to a point, but there's multiple times where you can get rid of this before it even gets to you. So when you tap the 3 mana to give it, you have the chance. So when it hits the field, obviously the person gets priority. But if they do something else, you then have a chance to get rid of it. If then they go to give it to you, you have the chance to kill it then. It's the argument that there are enough triggers for you to respond to this, and also the argument that you should have enchantment removal in your deck. Even like Abrupt Decay,
for example, if you're playing red-black, that's, you want to lock out that player.
Well, I mean, interestingly on this one, I mean, the point of something like Celestial Dawn, I assume, is you lock out the player that's not even going to be able to get rid of it, or the one that's threatening to you at the time.
If I'm playing against someone who's playing Crash, and Crash is a horrible, horrible general, and if they're getting really far ahead, I draw Celestial Dawn, I'll just go Celestial Dawn, have this, because they're going to kill me. And if someone else on the table is even being a bigger douche than I am, and that happens every now and then, I will give it to them, because they're being worse than I am, and no one's worse than I am.
The problem I've got with Celestial Dawn is the fact that, I don't know, I just don't like the idea of just locking someone completely out of the game, whether they're a combo deck, whether they've got a massive army. Because even if they've got a massive army, just giving them that's not going to do anything. It's not going to stop them. They're just going to hit you even harder.
With a massive army.
The other thing is that white is probably maybe the second most run color in Commander.
It certainly is in my play group, because I play mostly white.
Well, there we go then. So it suddenly takes like a back seat as like a win condition, if you will. It just becomes a fixing card.
And I say, if it's ever, that's the point. I would say, with us being on politics, that's the point. You give it to somebody, they've technically got 2 other players they can convince to help them get rid of it anyway. And it's quite literally, I mean, if someone was to give me Celestial Dawn and I had a knowledge that I've got no way of getting rid of it, I would quite happily sell my deck as a, if you get rid of this for me, I will quite happily pound them into the dust and ignore you till they're dead.
Yes,
I would quite happily offer that.
Normally, like in politics, if you say someone you can no longer play, that generally will make you target number 1, no matter sort of what position you're in, because it's a bit of a dick move. And yet again, I don't mind doing that because I love the sort of the thrill, if you will, of trying to win, even though you're under attack from every single direction. So yes, I do understand where you guys are coming from in that it is a dick card, and if I played with a more casual group or more casually, I'd take it out, but I still like it at the same time. It's the same thing as Blood Moon.
Almost the point of Zedru is to have dick cards to give to people, though. That is kind of almost the driving force behind him, really.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to have a load of decent cards in your deck that you want to give to your opponents to hit you in the face with. No, you're going to have the horrible ones that you don't actually want yourself. You want them to have so that they suffer from the penalty for it.
Exactly.
Quick question. Have you ever... So I noticed you got Divining Top. Have you ever... Well, you said you haven't played this yet, right?
No,
is that the kind of thing you'd look at giving away?
Divining Top?
Yeah.
It depends how late game it becomes. If you're like in turn sort of 15 to 20, where basically you're just topping, but you're drawing like 4+ cards a turn, then yes, because looking at the top 4 is just like, all right, let's see what cards are going to be drawing next turn. Okay, so I can put these in any order. I'm going to be drawing them anyway. So yes, it would be a card I would give away. But
the reason I asked mainly is because it's a card I've got in my deck, and it's quite. Obviously, the problem is if you give it away, you're not going to get any advantage with it from Zedru, because they're just going to put it on top of your library, right? But it's quite a nice one politically. If someone's looking for something or they need to dig an answer, you can say to them, I'll give you this, dig for your answer, dig for whatever, or try and find your land if you're mana screwed.
Yeah.
Let me draw a card, let me gain a life. And it kind of, through, donating that card just for the 1 turn,
I like that.
It's also very good with Rings of Brighthearth. I don't know, guys, if you guys know about this synergy between them. You pay 3 to draw a card at sorcery speed. You can pay 2 to do it at instant speed, but essentially you tap the top, you pay 2 mana with the Rings of Brighthearth. So the first trigger puts it on top of your deck. So you draw the card, and then the top goes on the top. Then the second one triggers. There's no top to put on top, so you redraw the top. Then you play the top, you tap the top, and then you cycle it. So for every 3 mana you have, you can draw a card.
Yeah, I found Rings of Bright-Earth to be one of the most insane cards in EDH. It just does.
It does so much. There's so much it can do.
Kind of thing. Yeah. There's something else going to pick up on here as well.
Yeah, just while you think about that, there's a couple of cards in here like Shifting Borders. Shifting Borders seems like a bad card, but just being able to go, I'll exchange my island for your island. There's no sort of downside to it, and you're instantly drawing an extra card and gaining a life every turn.
Yeah. Or it's swapping. Yeah, I would say, because I mean, looking through this, one of the biggest cripplers to me for any Zedruu deck we're giving away is when your opponents decide to run Homeward Path as well.
Oh yes, that was one other thing I forgot to mention actually when I went through it. Grid Monitor and Steel Golem. Both of these are essentially the same card. They're a bit different stats wise, but they say you can't play creature spells. Now that could be crippling, like especially for you and Dan, Adam, because you both play very creature centric decks, and if suddenly you get given this, it's just like, oh, so I can no longer play all these creatures in my hand. Obviously, it's not as bad as Celestial Dawn because I'm at least hoping you're still running Naturalize and all that sort of gubbins. And if you're not, I think you really should.
The thing is, I mean, I have a Zedruu deck of my own, and I do play Steel Golem in mine, as well as Grid Monarch. As you mentioned, mate, if you give that to me, I'd make sure it would go. And the reason it would go is because I would be continuously hitting you with it until you have to kill it.
Yeah,
it's a good card, and it is a must-have card in every Zedruu deck, both of them, I think. But yeah, I mean, with creature-centric decks, it normally just sort of gives them something else to hit you with.
Yeah, I'd rather have to deal with a 4/6 Grid Monitor than a 2020 Mistcutter Hydra. Let's say.
Of course, yeah.
I'd rather be hit for 4, especially since I can probably gain 3 a turn. So you're only hitting me for 1, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so, that's why you just throw it at one of the other players that's going to block it and kill it.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's where that goes.
But like, if it suddenly becomes an issue, I'm not sure if I am, but I should be. Yeah, I am running Homeward Path in here. So if they suddenly start becoming a problem, just go tap the Homeward Path, get them back.
Yes.
So
I used to run these, but I just found they died to random wraths so easily that it never really hung around that long. I don't know if you've experienced the same though.
I'm the control player. I'm the one dropping all the wraths. So yes, I know what you mean.
Arguably, yes.
Yeah.
So the thing I was going to mention before that I now remembered, basically, I've noticed that you've got a very similar, not necessarily problem, but issue to something I've tried to maybe force myself into. Is basically the deck is very light on red. I think if you take Kiki Jiki out, there's very, very little red there in terms of mana cost.
Yes.
And basically, it's awkward because it's one of those colors the general lets you play that color, but doesn't necessarily need it in the actual deck because all the best cards for this kind of thing are more or less in blue-white.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you said a couple of suggestions. If you're after a couple of red cards, I've not necessarily shoehorned in, but put in more recently are Assemble a Legion.
Yeah, okay.
Which is just nice because it hangs around and you can give away the tokens as well. I've got a few things that make tokens to give away, like goats. Which is quite nice.
Yeah, and I like that. That's a good idea, actually.
Another one of my favourite cards is Dominus of Fealty. So
yes, okay, yeah, I understand that completely.
So you steal something and then give it away to a different player. It can break up combos. It can break up, just big attacks. If you take one Hydra over there and give it to a player over there.
Right, yeah, cool. That's
redistribute
cool.
the threats.
Yeah.
That's one of my you've got Zealous Conscripts down there. You can do a similar thing with that, I suppose, but this is...
Dominus actually repeats it. Yeah, oddly enough, that's one of the cards I've got on my list here of suggestions for the deck as well. I mean, this isn't my style of play at all, really, but just very quickly looking down, the only two that really jumped out at me was Dominus of Fealty and Aggressive Mining.
Now, right. The original deck list that I played had Armageddon and Aggressive Mining in it. Basically, what you did is you put down Aggressive Mining, you gave it to someone, you cast Boros Charm to make all your stuff indestructible, and then you played Armageddon. and you would lock someone out of the game even more than Celestial Dawn could. So I have tolerances, and mass land destruction is way too high.
Yeah, well, we've discussed this in a previous one. I'm against mass land destruction, which is why I'd never run Armageddon. But I don't see aggressive mining as anywhere. Well, it's not as bad because it's not land destruction. It just stops them playing more.
Yeah,
I like it to stop ramp decks. I put it in recently, and I think because ramp it takes people, like when they do it properly, if you like, it takes people from the mid. When everyone else in the mid game, they're at their end game. So I think it's quite important for that.
When I took Armageddon out, I took aggressive mining with it because it was essentially the same thing. I can see myself putting it back in, especially maybe even to keep for myself, because I am running 36 land. There may be a point where I just have too many and just need to draw a Wrath.
Yeah.
And I do want to actually get a Crucible of Worlds, so aggressive mining and Crucible of Worlds is
pretty solid. But I mean, also,
it's a case of
you could even if you're being semi-nice, you could almost give the aggressive mining to lock out a red player someone that is using red that's nearly getting to the point where they're dangerous, but you lock them out so they can still try and get rid of their land to draw an answer for it. But
yeah, you give it to the Ashling deck.
Yes, give it to the Ashling deck.
Give it to the Ashling deck. I can't cast my commander. No. Oh well.
So one more card I was going to suggest, which is something I discovered recently, is Delaying Shield.
Oh, I'll
ring a bell.
Delay
it's a white enchantment, 3 and white, and it's if you would be dealt damage, put that many delay counters on Delaying Shield instead, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, remove all of the counters from it, and you lose a life for each counter removed unless you pay 1 white per counter. So basically, I mean, first obvious thing is it prevents commander damage.
True.
Right. So again, coming back to the politicalness, this is the kind of thing where if you've got it on your field, it's going to maybe deter people from attacking you. But not only that, if someone else gets attacked with by commander, and if it would be in your interest for that player not to just die to their damage, you just give this away in their blocking step, and then it prevents them dying to commander damage. There's all sorts of interesting things. Also, if you get dealt massive damage, then it gets prevented. Then you give it back to the person who's dealt you the damage, and they lose the life instead.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's got a lot of fun stuff in this deck.
I was thinking that if it was a May, I'd run it, but I didn't realize it would trigger for them. They would lose the. Oh, that's.
Well, if they've got white, they can pay a little bit, but if you get dealt enough damage to warrant giving it away, like if you take 4, you just take 4 and then take it in your upkeep, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but, you just take but if they combo out and play infinite tokens. You just go, okay, I'll take the damage, put all the counters on here. Here you go.
I think the only thing my deck might be missing is a way to flash this in. So,
yeah, I can't think of a way off the top of my head you can flash an enchantment into play.
I just don't have the cards. Well, there's the blue Leyline, right? And
oh yes, of course.
And the Vedalken Orrery, that's the other one. But I just don't have them. No,
I found all this help very insightful. I actually remember a lot of these cards and put them in. I definitely like Assemble the Legion, the idea of giving away 1/1 tokens.
Yeah, Assemble the Legion does sound good.
Because essentially when you give it away, you essentially neuter it, because it's like you're gaining an extra card and gaining a life. So even if they hit you with it, you're still gaining sort of the damage back. There's a net of 0. Plus, if you give creatures to people that don't necessarily do anything wrong, they're probably not going to hit you with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing that's just jumped out that you might like is Contested Warzone.
Yeah, the land's not fussed with it, because you only get it back when they have to hit you, and you only get it back when you hit them, isn't it?
But you're not going to want it back, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Basically, because also it's going to encourage other players to attack each other rather than attacking you if they've got it.
Okay.
I've got a couple of suggestions as well. Sorry, Adam, I cut you off.
That's okay.
No, Karen.
Right, so I have a Zedru deck as well, so that makes 3 of us. There's a couple cards that I'm playing that I thought you might like, Tom.
What's that?
Statecraft is one of them.
Statecraft. I've heard of it. Can't remember what it does.
Right, so it's blue and 3 colourless enchantment. It came out in Mercadian Masks, and it says prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to you. And sorry, let me start that bit again.
That would be dealt. Yeah, I'm reading it now.
It would be dealt to and by your creatures, or creatures you control. So give that away, and then the nasty beatdown player can't hit you, or anyone.
That will be dealt to and dealt by creatures. I think it's only creatures.
Yes, it is, but that means the nasty beatdown deck's creatures suddenly become nothing. They can't hit you.
As long as you have a blocker.
No, just
prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by creatures you control.
Yeah.
That's dealt to your creatures, not to you, but to your creatures.
Yeah, to and by, but you give it away.
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay. Fine. Yeah, I have to work that angle into it every time. Sure. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, you give that away to stop the nasty beatdown player hitting anybody else. That's one thing. I've got a couple more here that I like. I've got Spine of Ishtar. I really, really like this. So it's 7 mana artifact. When it comes into play, enters the battlefield now. Destroy target permanent. That's
yeah. Spine of Ishtar's good.
Yeah, and then if they do manage to get rid of it, if it dies, it just goes straight back to your hand, so you can then play it again and give it away again.
Yeah, I guess that could work.
Yeah. The other card I was thinking of, I'm just looking down my list to see what else you're not playing. This was as an alternative win condition. Because I've noticed you have the Kiki-Jiki combo deck, as you rightly said earlier.
Yeah.
It feels a bit of a cop-out to me to have that in a deck like Zedru, just because, I don't know, it almost feels like you're using Zedru for the colours.
No, I agree with you. It's just that win cons for Commander for me get awkward. I like being able to win very quickly and when I want to win. So obviously combos are a really easy way of just going, I win. You can, but yes, I can see where you're coming from. If you can give me an alternate sort of win condition, I will definitely look at it because.
Okay. So this is one of my win conditions. Now I run 28 enchantments. You run 13, so you might want a few more for this. But I play in mine. I've actually lost it on my list now. Oh, I also play Form of the Dragon. That's another way of locking someone out, but only sort of partly.
What's it called?
I really like that.
Dragon.
Full Metal Dragon.
Form of the Dragon. So,
Form of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Full Metal Dragon.
Yeah, you can call it Full Metal Dragon. Yeah, it's red 4 for an enchantment. Beginning of your upkeep, Form of the Dragon deals 5 damage to target creature or player. At the end of each turn, your life total becomes 5, and creatures without flying can't attack you. That can work for you or against someone else.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. The one for me that I've still lost, give me 10 seconds and I'll find it. It is... Aha, there we go. Opalescence.
Oh, God, no. I am not going into the judge nightmare of opalescence and humility. I'm just not going anywhere near it.
No, I don't play humility. No, it's literally just opalescence. So the idea for mine is I just give away all these enchantments, play opalescence, and then when I want to win, I just homeward path them back.
Oh, right, okay. So you might... Yeah, okay, sure. I see how that works.
Yeah. So early game, you got your advantage of you've given all your Oblivion Rings and whatever else away, and Darksteel Mutation is another one I do. You can give all those away. That's fine. That draws you cards. It gains you life. When you just want to put the game to rest, you can play a Wrath. I don't play any Wraths in mine, strangely. But you can play a Wrath, destroy all the creatures, play Opalescence, get all your stuff back homeward path at end of turn, and then just beat them around the face with them.
That sounds really good. Yeah, I've had enough food for
thought.
thought,
One more
I think.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, God, more.
Just
more.
One more thing. This one isn't political, so there's not much to say, but Paradox Haze, given the amount of cards you're...
Oh, yeah, double upkeep. Yeah.
Because you just enchant yourself, and you can give it away as well.
Yeah.
And it still enchants you, which is quite nice.
Yeah, you give it away to other people that have got upkeep stuff out that they're not ready to be punished for.
Yeah, like cumulative upkeep.
Yes,
No,
like you give them like Illusions of
an aura.
Grandeur, then you give them Paradox Haze, and you just watch them cry.
Well, it's an aura, so it sits on you. So you get it's like Oblivion Ring. You Oblivion Ring something and give it away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
you
you,
still get
so
your
you give
double
it
up.
away.
You can give it
You
away.
get 2 upkeeps. with.
Oh yeah, fine, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
think that's enough.
I think that's very much covered that, actually. I think
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. It's much appreciated. I'll remember all the cards you've suggested in time, and I will try them all out.
If you don't, we have a recording of it.
Yes, we do, and I will be listening to it for 1,000 times through. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
I hope
Big thumbs up.
Editing.
Right. So, is that moving on then to cards of the week?
Yes, cards of the week. So, Adam, you may as well start since you introduced it.
Yes. My pick, this one, is one that I've had endless fun with. And as I said, I've introduced it to you guys earlier. And I'm going to go with Radiate. Now, for anyone that hasn't come across Radiate in Commander, you're missing out, seriously. It's a 5-mana red instant. Choose target instant or sorcery spell that targets a single permanent or player. For each other permanent or player it could target, put a copy of the spell onto the stack. Each copy targets a different one of those permanents and players. Now, there's no end
Beast Within.
Yeah, Beast Within.
Beast Within.
Having something of mine, Beast Within, and responding with a Radiate to turn everything onto the board into 3/3 beasts. I don't think I've ever cast Radiate and not laughed as I've done it. Sometimes manically, sometimes not, but it's always provided some very fun outlooks. I mean, Path to Exile clears the board of creatures and fixes everyone's mana for the rest of the game quite nicely with the Radiate. Beast Within's a bit of nonsense. You catch a lightning bolt, you feel like the Emperor out of Star Wars going off at the edge of the board with a bit of force lightning. It's just joy every single time.
I guess it's a politics card. Just be able to threaten someone if you ever cast Beast Within, you're all fucking screwed.
I have a story about this actually. I just want to share this with listeners. I've said it while we weren't recording, but I want to share it again because it does tickle me. Basically, I know a story of a guy who was at an unhinged pre-release, and he played a booster tutor and decided he wanted to open. I mean, he had sort of loads of booster packs on him just in case he got boosted tutor because he loves the card. And he opens up a Torment one, and there's a Radiate in it. So he then plays a little bit further down the line, plays Ass Whipping, which destroys all silver bordered cards that you can see from where you're stood. And then he radiated it. So the players playing next to him saw what had happened and dived on top of the table to cover their cards. Everyone else was going, what the hell's going on? It's like, oh, it resolves, and he just absolutely annihilates every single person at the table. That's not even in his game. And it's got to be card of the year just for that story.
Well, I got card of the year. Fantastic.
No, Radiate got card of the year.
Yeah, that's what I picked Radiate.
My card of the week, which is actually going to be one of my next commanders, probably after Zedru, and is a brilliant politics card, is Edric. Since he's an amazing politics commander because you can make people not attack you just to draw cards. Yeah. Just like attack him, you're going to draw cards. It's just like, I think that's the best argument I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, quite often there's the occasional times when someone's just got this little creature that's not doing anything. He just takes a swing at somebody if there's nothing else to do, and that's always going to guarantee that it's not coming at you. I mean, it's not going to stop people attacking you, but it's always going to guarantee that you're not going to take the lion's share anymore.
Yeah, he's in awkward colours for me because blue green, not enough removal, but he's basically, if you're going to build the deck, just find as many 1-drop creatures which have like flying or unblockable or anything like that. Just put them in there.
I've got to say, for me, this isn't a very political card. If ever I'm sat at a table and someone in my game drops down an Edric, they are being hit hard. I don't care about the cards because I know like a lot of people look at Edric and think, oh, 3 cards if I don't attack him. But and it's fine. But the thing you've got to think of is it's not just you that's getting 3 cards. The person who has Edric can't attack himself, so he's always going to be getting 3 cards. And he's just going to bury you in card advantage, and he's just going to kick your ass with a load of little 1/1s for 1. No.
If you walk into that, you're basically playing a Bearhook deck against yourself. It's kind of the way I see it. It's like If you go with it, then you're doing exactly what that player wants you to do, in which case you're already doing half their job for them.
Exactly. Yeah, you're already dead because you're basically they're not even playing the game anymore. You're just doing all their hard work while they sit there twiddling their thumbs and thinking.
Exactly.
It is literally Admiral Akbar shouting, "It's a trap." That is literally what Edric is.
I don't get that reference, but I'll laugh anyway.
So,
What?
Dan,
Oh god, this is a conversation for another time.
yeah, this
Dan.
isn't something to get into now. Dan, your
No,
priority.
no, we're going to be here for hours after this now. God bloody damn it.
Okay, my card for this week then is Puka's Mischief. I love this card. It has a smoking goat rabbit thing on it. It's not why I love it. The art's messed up. It's so it's a rare from Shadowmoor. It's blue and free for an enchantment, and it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exchange control of target non-land permanent you control and target non-land permanent an opponent controls with equal or lesser converted mana cost. What's not to love about that? You
I
could
really
just
like
get hold
that
of. I mean, you could just nick someone's Solemn Simulacrum by giving away something crap. No, really, no. I play this in my Zedru deck, and it does Zedru's work for it. I've even at times got bored and just given Puka's Mischief to someone else and said, "There you go nuts."
I just remembered something. Puka's Mischief for Norin. Oh my god.
Yes,
It's a
Alvin
thing.
also does Puka's Mischief for Norin, but I'm not gonna advocate that.
Take all the Sol Rings.
Oh, but the sad thing is that Norin's only converted mana cost 1.
Yeah,
Oh.
it limits you a lot, but
You can't, because you can't take land. You can take tokens.
You can take creature tokens. You can take Soul Rings with Norin.
You can take top.
You can take.
No. Ignore
that.
me. It's a bad idea.
Let's not get into that. So on a rarity, we get 4 cards of the week this week because obviously Edward's with us.
Five. It's always 5.
4.
It's always 5.
No.
There will be sad bot until the end of time.
Edward, 4. Sorry, Ed.
All right. So you guys said choose a political card. So I went for one that's maybe not so obvious, but it's something that I enjoy playing with because I find it difficult, if that makes sense. So it's Luminarch Ascension.
Oh, I love it.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
So it's one of
yeah.
the cards that I find most difficult to determine at what point it should be played. Like if you play early, you can struggle to defend yourself, and it obviously can just get blown up. If you're too late, it's just not going to be a big enough threat. But the fact that it's difficult to play with makes me like enjoy playing with it more, if that makes sense. And I find it's quite nice to be political with it because you obviously have to try and persuade people not to attack you. If you haven't got a great opportunity to play it when there's no board presence. But then it's a case of once you get it online as well, you need to be able to persuade people that you want to keep it online. You can deal with so-and-so's flyer or whatever life total or threats, etc.
I think it's a 4 mana Assemble a Legion. I know that sounds a bit weird, but that's basically when you play it. Because it works in the same way as Assemble the Legion does. Assemble the Legion starts off as just a 1/1, then just 2 1/1s, and then it starts to get really, really crazy when you start churning out 5 1/1s and 6 1/1s.
Yeah.
And then you start adding on to the fact you may have Anthem effect, and it's suddenly 6 2/2s, which are significantly more horrible than 6 1/1s.
Can you squeeze this into your Bears deck? Is that in the right colours? Assemble a Legion, I mean.
No, it's white. It's white red, whereas Dan's bear deck is white green.
Okay.
Plus they have haste, so they're not vanilla.
No, and I can't use Luminarch Ascension because they fly.
Oh, sad times. Poor Dan.
Right, well, that's
yeah. I think that's everything. I think we've had a fairly decent episode there. We've gone through, politics. We've gone through a deck tech, which I found incredibly useful, and I will be taking away a couple of those ideas and definitely adding them and probably considering the others. And we've gone through cards of the week, and we've had 5 cards this week rather than the usual 4. 5.
So
just one thing I want to add as we close the show. If any listeners have got a deck list that they want us to talk about, just leave leave a link to it or leave the list in the comments on YouTube or on the Facebook page that this is hosted on. And, you know, if we like it, we'll go through it. We'll talk about it. If we don't like it, we'll rip it to shreds.
No, Dan and Adam won't. I will. If your curve is not below 4, we have an issue.
And if it doesn't have 40 creatures at least, then we have an issue.
I think it's really limiting what people are going to be able to submit. But
if your deck isn't 40 sad bots, we have an issue.
No, in all seriousness, no.
No.
If you want your deck spoken about on here and you want some ideas for it, or you just want to show it off, send us the link to it. Send us the list. We'll discuss it. We'll be gentle, and you know, you might even get on the show to talk about it yourself.
Yeah, we have a wide variety of playstyles here, whether it's combo control from me, or whether it's sort of creature based from Dan and Adam. I guess you two have 2 different styles, but you get what I mean. We have 3 people who play fairly differently that can take a look at your deck and try and help you as much as possible. That's what we're here for. We're supposed to be a community style podcast where we try and stay away from the community as much as possible.
Okay, so we'll wrap this show up. We've just gone over the hour mark as well, so we'll wrap this show up. All that's left to say is thank you to Adam, Tom, Ed, and thank you to me. And
no, thank you to you.
Thank you to me. And
thank you to everyone for listening.
Yeah,
thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for listening, guys.
So we'll speak to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.